We'll give folks a moment to trickle in here. While we're doing that, I would ask, just as a matter of housekeeping, that if you are not speaking, that you mute your Zoom. We've got several members of the All Aboard Ohio Board on the call today. Board President Mitch Radakovich. I saw Lisa Buffo. Anybody else that we've missed that is
Good morning,
one
John.
of our... Good morning. Good
It's
morning.
Linda.
Hello. So good to see you.
I hope you can see me because I can't tell if you can see me or not.
Nope, I've got you on my screen. I think we're in good
Okay.
shape.
Morning, Mitch.
Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Wonderful.
Morning, Stu.
Looks like it's okay.
And I think while we're letting people trickle in still here, we'll maybe give it another minute or two to have folks join the call. But if you want to drop your name and what part of the state, or even what state you're in the chat, we'd love to see that. I do want to I don't want to take a whole lot of time today because we've got a pretty full hour, and I don't want to get too far out of our focus area for the morning. But I did want to take an opportunity to personally thank everybody who was part of our advocacy efforts last week with calling and emailing the State House. For those that haven't seen in the news, we were able to persuade the House to include the language to rejoin the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission in the operating budget, which was a bit of a surprise to us. We had been told the week prior that it just was not going to happen. But I really do credit the efforts of the folks on this call and the rest of our advocacy team across the state and really across the country with really putting pressure on our legislature to make that happen. So it's just a wonderful testament to the power of good advocacy. Mitch and Lisa and I are working very carefully to develop the strategy for the next step in the process. So I think in the time being, just to answer that big question for folks, we don't have an immediate ask of you at this point, but that ask will be coming. So just be ready to activate again like you did on the House side last week. But again, just thank you so much for all of the work that you did, and just so immensely proud to be a part of this organization that was really, again, able to move the needle and get things done. So with that, I think we're kind of reaching critical mass. So today's call, we're going to begin with a bit of a kind of open roundtable. We've got, as a bit of a surprise, we were able to have a third member of our panel join. I kind of put her on the spot this morning. She was very gracious to offer some thoughts from her perspective in her municipality. But we've got some folks that are that represent cities and municipalities along proposed rail routes that are not the big cities. So we're talking about rural and suburban cities, and really the impacts that passenger rail expansion has on those towns, on those residents, and what it means for folks that aren't Columbus, that aren't Cincinnati, that aren't Cleveland or Toledo, in terms of not only bringing people in, but also offering their residents an opportunity to get out. So I do want to recognize the folks that we've got joining us today. We've got Mayor Linda Pitt from the city of Crestline, which is, for those that aren't familiar, is northeast of Columbus, about halfway between Columbus and Cleveland on that 3CD route. We've got Councilmember Michael Ryan, who represents the city of Hamilton, which is just north of the city of Cincinnati. And then we've got City Manager Michelle Crandall from the city of Hilliard, which is a suburb of Columbus here in central Ohio. So with that, I'm going to give those three folks an opportunity to maybe introduce themselves, talk just very high level about what passenger rail might mean for their city. And then I've got just a couple of questions to maybe prompt some more conversation. So Mayor Pitt, we'll start with you, and feel free to take maybe 3 to 5 minutes to just talk a little bit about Crestline and what passenger rail might mean for that city.
Okay, great. Thanks. John. Good morning, everybody. I'm Linda Horning Pitt, Mayor Crestline, and I always like to call it the 4C and D, so that way, if we keep saying it, we'll speak it into existence. So, Crestline is and was actually built by the railroad in 1851 because no other town wanted the intersection of the north, south, east, west railroads. And so they took this land and the railroads went ahead and built the intersection, and then of course the town sprung up around it, Crestline. We're a big railroad town up until probably the late 60s, early when Penn Central, we could see the future. They were going to go bankrupt. However, back then, all the passenger rail was done by freight. So my grandpa was an engineer. I mean, we rode the freight train because they had a passenger car to Fort Wayne because it was an east-west route then. Then Amtrak came in around 1970 and they took over the passenger rail from the freight haulers. And so we had Amtrak going east and west from 1970s to a little about 1990, 1992. And granted, it was one stop, if you will, meaning that you had to go and get up at 3:30 in the morning to catch this train to go to Chicago or to head east. And I have ridden on that train. And then they took it away. I was gone for 30 years, came back, and now this prospect of having passenger rail back is exciting. I was not here for Governor Kasich's debacle of sending the money supposedly back, but we all know it went to Michigan and California for high-speed rail. So I'm very proponent of getting this passenger rail back. My people want passenger rail because we're used to it. And I have a lot of elderly people. They're not going to drive into Columbus or Cleveland with the congestion there. And we do go to Hilliard all the time because I have a sister who lives there. And I can't let my parents drive coming in from the north and then hitting the outer belt just to get to Columbus. So I think that's important. We know that people cannot, they're still working from home, so they want to catch the train to go into the offices, whether it be north or south. They also, I know we have over 300,000 people in an area, 35-mile radius surrounding Crestline that I believe would take the train. There are sporting events as well as people will put their kids on the train to go to college. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And of course, economically, it would be a boon for our area because we are kind of considered a depressed area. And trying to think of what they call it, but to get grant money. We are definitely a lower income area, just my town, but it would be a really big boost to have the stop there so we could then it would affect the entire area. And that's why I'm an advocate about passenger rail. And I'm very vocal, as the guys know, and I'm very vocal with my state rep who has, I love him, but I finally understood when we met him why he's not big on passenger rail, because they have no trains in his county. Since they have no trains, it doesn't exist. And I told him my people, Crawford County, they want, and also Richland County, they want rail. So hopefully, I'd like to get rail, and I'd like to go on a train ride with him, so he can see the
I
benefits.
love that. We'd love to get him in the habit of driving to Crestline, getting on the train, and then taking it down to Columbus.
Yeah.
Councilmember Ryan, we'll throw things to you. We'll go
Sure.
to kind of the other corner of the state and have you talk a little bit about Hamilton.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for having me on the call, and I appreciate everyone taking just a little bit of your Saturday morning to listen to us. And Mayor, thank you so much for fighting for your town. I share that same sentiment and energy. So thank you so much, Mayor Pitt. Hamilton is, as you know, we are located just 45 minutes north of Cincinnati in Butler County. We are the county seat. We are strategically placed to service both the 4C and D and the Cardinal. So the reason why we've been fighting for this initiative is one of opportunity. Hamilton was very depressed in the 90s and the early 2000s. We had a lot of industry leave, and that just it really hurt the town. A lot of big paper making factories left, and it just hurt us a lot. So we've been on the rebound for the last 15 years. And when Amtrak first came to Hamilton, it was back in the 70s, and we serviced Cardinal up until about 2005. So we know the benefits. Just unfortunately, times change, and Amtrak left in 2005. However, with the new expansion plans, we know that we have an opportunity. And that opportunity is from a economic development standpoint. We know bringing passenger rail back to the city is going to support our small business community. It's going to create economic development opportunities that we just currently don't have. It's going to bring people back into our town. That's going to provide foot traffic to our new hotels, our new restaurants, and other small businesses. The biggest thing is that it will create another gateway, not only to Hamilton, but to Butler County. And that is what I have been touting for the last 4.5 years as being the lead initiative on this endeavor. This is going to help all the cities in Southwest Ohio, not just Hamilton, not just Butler County, but it's going to help ignite Butler County, Hamilton County, Warren, and Claremont. So what I would continue to say is how we have been getting support for this is because we hooked up with our business community to show them that this will only help their business. And John, you and I were talking about this a while back. We have hooked up with our local Chamber of Commerce. They have joined our efforts. We have held meetings and forums with our business community just in Hamilton alone. And they are very excited about this because they know this is going to benefit them. And they know that if we can plant the seed now for passenger rail, this is only going to grow. So I would ask, some of our local elected officials or others who are on this call, get with your local Chamber of Commerce, have a meeting with them, have a discussion with them, show them that this is good for business. It's going to enhance business. It's going to attract visitors to these businesses. And the biggest factor of this, and Mary, you brought this up with your state reps and in your state senator, that is how we were able to move this needle in Columbus. At the Advocacy Day, we talked to our state reps from a business standpoint, saying this will help us with the business community. This is feeding a need that they need right now, and it's looking ahead from an economic development standpoint. It's providing that service and void to the small business community because the times are still tough, and Columbus, as we can tell, they're a little nervous about spending money, but when you look at it from an investment standpoint, this is an investment to the business community. We're talking about connecting our cities. We're talking about connecting employers to employees and employees to employers and vice versa. So that is why we are attracted to this. This is going to be great for everybody. So that's really all I've got to say about it. But we're ready for this. We're excited about it. And hopefully what we're doing in Hamilton, I feel free to talk to me more about it. But getting everybody involved, your business community is going to be a huge push in Columbus to get this over the finish line. Having CEOs write letters is huge. In fact, First Financial Bank CEO wrote us a letter of support, and we sent that to our state reps. We sent it to our senators, even to the folks that we met with in Columbus, a few weeks ago when all of us were up there. That speaks volumes. When you have the business community coming out in support of this endeavor, they're going to listen to that. The Columbus is going to listen to that. So I encourage all of you, hook up with your local chamber of commerce. Hook up with other, your county commissioners, your other cities and towns. Get them to pass a resolution. Bring them to the table. This is going to impact everybody. So keep pushing. I'm here to support all of you in your endeavors. If you have any questions or just need some ideas, send me an email or send me a text. I'm here to give you as much information and ideas as I can. So, but John, that's all I can really provide. But really excited about this opportunity. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We'll bring it to center. I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, Michelle, but if you'd want to share some thoughts about the city of Hilliard and how passenger rail expansion will help and what maybe what it means to Hilliard. And just for the folks on the call, Hilliard is along the Midwest Connect route, which would run from Pittsburgh through Columbus to Lima, Fort Wayne, and then on to Chicago.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate being a last minute ad. I just want to first say I'm a big fan of Crestline and the city of Hamilton. It's great to see everything that you're doing in this area. I was just down in Hamilton for a day and enjoyed some of your new development and a couple restaurants, and just wonderful to see where the city of Hamilton's headed. So we are on the and being considered as a possible stop along the Midwest Connect. And as John said, that would run from Pittsburgh through Columbus, Fort Wayne to Chicago. We know that for both the 3C and D and the Midwest Connect, that downtown Columbus, our convention center, would be the primary stop. We see the city of Hilliard as the ideal outer belt stop, so for sort of first stop out of downtown. And we've completed a feasibility study looking at just how many people we could serve conveniently. So if you don't want to go downtown to catch Amtrak and you might live in one of the suburbs, how quickly can you get to the Hilliard station? And the location we have is right off of 270, so really convenient. So that's our approach. What it could do for Hilliard specifically, we see it as an opportunity for economic development, redevelopment. The area that we've cited is in an area that one side of the tracks has redeveloped as mixed use, and the other side is in need of that. So for us, it really is. This could be an anchor to bring about some redevelopment. So I'll also say I'm city manager for the city of Hilliard, but I'm also the vice chair of Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. And MORPC has been extremely active advocating for both of these lines. And at the State House, and I've gone with them on a couple trips to DC to visit with Amtrak and Federal Rail Administration. So we're doing all we can. From the business standpoint, we've engaged with the Columbus Partnership, which represents about 75 of our largest corporations in Central Ohio. And they have also been extremely strong advocates for both of these lines. A little more leaning towards the Midwest Connect because they see the Chicago-Pittsburgh one as maybe more important to them from a business perspective. And then the last thing I'll add is, as we ask our residents what they think of rail, they get really excited. And if you ask them, where they would go, they're probably most excited about the 3C and D to get up to Cleveland and down to Cincinnati and stops along the way. And I think from a business and resident perspective, we've been long overdue in Ohio.
Wonderful. Well, that kind of leads, I think, a little bit into one of the first questions I had, and I'll just open the floor to any thoughts that any of the three of you would have. When we think about passenger rail and think about what it does, obviously we're thinking about movement of people from one place to the other. Do you see opportunities for your residents to get to other places, or do you see passenger rail as maybe making the city that you represent a destination to come to, or maybe a little bit of both?
John, I'll chime in on that. Yes, the Hamilton residents see that opportunity for both travel and tourism. Most of the talk from the Hamilton residents has been, I can't wait to catch the 3C in Hamilton so I can go to Cleveland for the day, or I can go to Columbus for the day. I mean, we have a huge Ohio State fan base down here in Hamilton, and they would love nothing more than to hop on that train and not drive. So this provides a travel and tourism perspective, and that economic development component for growth.
Are you going to go, Michelle? Or okay, this is Linda. I totally agree with Michael, and it's interesting because I say both as well, that we could be a destination city for the sheer fact that not just us, but the area around us, because we have Mansfield, which is like 15 miles away, Lexington maybe 20 minutes, and we have Mid-Ohio racetrack, where a lot of those people who love those car races, we have that there. We have a lot of festivals. We have the Bratwurst Festival, which is kind of like, statewide, nationally known. And I believe that we have Ashland, 25 minutes away. So yes, we want to also be a destination city. And then at the our whistle stop back in last year, Derek talked about a town, and I'm out west somewhere, where the people took the train just to go to that town, and that town grew and had developed places that could become a destination, like a winery, like a brewery, like a craft place. And so those things are popping up in our area, but I think that it would even add more.
I would say both as well. Hilliard is the site for Franklin County Fairgrounds are within the city of Hilliard. Got a great downtown. We have 6 hotels within walking distance of where our train stop would be. So I think there's an opportunity to draw people and add more that would attract them. We just recently completed a recreation and wellness campus with about 20 some athletic fields that we're hoping to attract some tournaments to. How great would it be to jump on a Amtrak train and get to the tournament?
Wonderful. No, those are all great thoughts. Michelle, you had mentioned that Hilliard had done some feasibility studies, and I'll toss this out for the whole group. What steps has your town taken in terms of maybe considering where the station would be, what service in your area might look like? Michael, I know you had mentioned that Hamilton is uniquely positioned on 2 separate routes, so you've kind of got that bit of geography in your favor. Just maybe some thoughts about, again, what the mechanics of this all would look like for your town.
As I mentioned, we've completed a feasibility study. We looked at 2 different locations that are immediately adjacent to each other on both sides of the track and right off the 270, so conveniently located. The site that we picked and the level of station that we picked would accommodate 20 to 100,000 arrivals and departures per year, which is above what we would anticipate to begin with. But if passenger rail catches on and Central Hub becomes the place to be, we wanted to start at a level that was appropriate. We looked at population within 15 minutes and 30 minutes. Within a 15-minute drive, there's almost 500,000 people that live within that distance. And within a 30-minute drive, it's 1.5 million. So we think it's ideal. Our city council had the foresight to purchase some of the land that we needed for both of these locations. And so we feel like we're ready and excited to move on to Midwest Connect is moving into phase 2 of the study right now.
Yeah, regarding the feasibility study, Hamilton, we just completed one with ACOM back in February, and it shows 7 possible sites in town, but one preferred, and the one preferred will be able to service both the 3C and the Cardinal. So, and the best part about the preferred site with this, it is in an area that it is already primed for redevelopment. We have a very large data center getting ready to go in there. And across the street from that data center is Miami University Regional Campus, which is actually getting ready to expand. They're doing very, very well down here. We also, it's located very close, well, about 2 blocks away from a state highway that is also getting ready to do some redevelopment with a couple of large manufacturing businesses in that area. So the feasibility study in Hamilton alone is showing conservatively 20,000 passengers per year. That's just for the 3C just alone. So and I got to be honest, I thought that was great numbers. So we know this is going to work. The council's on board. And we are strategically preparing ourselves. So we're, that feasibility study has taken us as far as we can, but it's really shown us the data that we need to see, that, residents need to see, that might question, the expansion in our town. So the numbers are there. We know this is going to work, and we know it's going to be profitable, and we know people are going to use it. And it's, like I said, it's going in a part of town that is only going to see redevelopment from all industries, from education, advanced manufacturing, and others. So those feasibility studies are critically important. Those who have not done one, that is money well spent, because you need to see that data so you can make a good decision on where this can go and how it can benefit your town.
So, Michael, this is Linda. I have a question for you. You said that where the station's going to go can fit service 2 of the routes. Are they both going east and west, or do you have a north and south and an east and west?
So the rail lines in Hamilton, the Cardinal line comes from Indianapolis, so it's coming, yes. So that's the east and west route, and then it turns south inside Hamilton. That very line, it runs through Glendale and straight into Queensgate, and we've got the land available next to both of those lines that can fit a passenger rail station. So it's a matter of which lines the state is going to approve. The lines I'm talking about in Hamilton are the CSX lines that run north and south.
Right.
The other line in this area that they're talking about is the Norfolk Southern line, which would run through Sharonville. So it's just going to come down to what the railroad and the state negotiate. But Hamilton's prepared to make our claim. We have some ideas that CSX would want to hear. So, but yes, to answer your question, the CSX line is north and south, but it makes a turn and crosses the river and starts going west towards Indy.
Okay, and the reason for my question is because where we have this prime location. However, we were told, it is right at that junction, north, south, east, west. It would be perfect for future expansion. However, we are told that the freight haulers will not allow a depot station to be at an intersection, at that intersection, even though it was there in the past. So that means, we have 2 sites in town. I mean, the one site that we are favoring, it will drop the people right downtown Crestline. I mean, and we are small. We are small. However, I like that idea of a feasibility study, which we have not done. But where we drop off, I mean, we want it to be downtown where our shops and restaurants are. And we have that capability to do that.
Mhm. Right. And, unfortunately we were, and I know John knows this, we were hoping that our station would be located right in our downtown, which is, where the 3 new hotels are. We got another one on the way, and it's in close proximity, to the Spooky Nook Sports Complex, which is the largest sports complex in North America that is still coming online. It's all about land availability. And, that study took into consideration what the railroad would want to see. That land that would not impact freight operations. But it's really just going to come down to how we negotiate with the freight railroads. We in Hamilton, because we've got over 40 trains a day coming through town, a lot, and it is nonstop. So we are in constant contact with them. They have some specific asks, and we are going to be using some of those factors when we start these negotiations, if we can get to that point. So it's really just going to come down to what they need out of your city, so we can get this done. And it's not going to be blanket, town to town, but those are going to be some tough conversations to have, because we know, CSX, they can be a little difficult to talk to, but if there's a way, and I know there is, they want to hear particular things, safety and security for their trains. And if there is a compromise that can be reached, I know it's there. They want those trains moving just as much as we do. And there is a way to make this work in high trafficked areas. So we're just got to wait and see, and just keep trying to work with them to hear their thoughts. Now, I know that, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Queensgate is doing a feasibility study on high trafficked freight lines right now around the state. So that data is actually going to be critical to all of us, because CSX is trying to highlight, where are they getting slowed down the most. So that's going to be used right when hopefully the 3C is going to be developed. So clearly CSX is not going to favor bringing passenger rail to high trafficked areas. And that's something we're going to have to negotiate out and then see how we can reduce that anxiety on their part. But there are ways to do it. It might cost some money, but there's a way to do this with them.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank our 3 panelists so much today. Just to kind of follow up on that, yes, there is. It's actually being sponsored by ORDC and funded through the Federal Rail Administration, but there is a study being done in the greater Cincinnati area about congestion and fluidity. And to your point, that will help everyone, whether it be freight, whether it be passenger. I've come to starting to say that, the tracks don't see what type of train, all it sees is a train. So whether it's, whether we're making the congestion better for freight or passenger, a high tide raises all ships. So thank you so much. I will give, if any of the panelists have, just some closing thoughts for maybe a minute or two, or if you feel like you've said your piece, that's fine too.
I just want to mention I dropped into the chat links to our feasibility study We are going to reissue that. We did that last year, and under the previous U.S. Department of Transportation, they had something called Justice 40, which you looked at how you were positively impacting disadvantaged communities. That's not the approach now, so we're going to change that up. So anyone starting a new study, what we've been told to focus on instead of U.S. or instead of the Justice 40 is it's now birth rates, marriage rates, and they also said focus heavy on economic development impacts. So that's what we're going to go back in and sort of redevelop our study based on that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all again. At this point, Mitch, would you like to introduce our next speaker? I think you know them a little bit better than I do and might have some thoughts about what we're going to talk about.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I'm super excited to introduce Dom here today from the University of Cincinnati. He recently completed his master's in. Can you specifically say which words your master's was in, Dom?
Hi. Yeah, so Master in Design,
In
which
design.
is design research. And yeah, um a lot of the topics that are not currently in fashion, but it is a lot about inclusion and mobility. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, and the project that I'm gonna be speaking about today is a little bit about that, but it's a little bit different too.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, so just to finish the introduction, I think that Dom's presentation, so yes, he's a student or just has completed his master's at UC and is currently working as a researcher at UC, and has been working on a project with the Ohio Department of Transportation, which I think fits in very nicely with this discussion. So talking about when we do bring transportation options to lots of different parts of our state, large cities, but also small cities and rural areas, how can we develop kind of transit hubs around those stations? And so it fits perfectly with what Councilmember Ryan, Mayor Pitt, and City Manager Crandall were talking about. So everybody, welcome Dom.
Thank you. I know I have to figure out share.
Yeah,
Okay.
here, let me make sure you can.
Um,
Yeah, you're good.
yeah, I think that should be good. Okay, can you all see my screen? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So as Mitch said, my name's Dom. I'm a research assistant at University of Cincinnati. Originally, I'm from Croatia, which has kind of a similar rail situation to Ohio. Um, Unlikely for Europe, but I did live in Belgium for a little bit, and I have to just mirror what a lot of you said today. I was able to just take one of like 40 daily trains from Antwerp to the coast whenever I wanted, which was definitely awesome compared to both Croatia and now Cincinnati. And what I'm going to talk about today is a grant project called Hubs for Ohio, which is about a framework for the Ohio Department of Transportation. So this will be the contents, just a little bit about our research and design, what we did, and then the impact, and finally the playbook, which I did send to John, and I hope that we will be able to distribute the playbook to all of you, and hopefully it will make some sense to whatever you're developing next. So an overview, the lab that I work in is kind of like a consultancy at University of Cincinnati. We're working with partners from government, industries, nonprofits, communities, under Director Alejandro Lozano Robledo. And we specialize in human-centered research and design. We have a lot of proprietary quantitative, qualitative methods that we use, technology, firstly to empower people, such as digital twins for decision making, and design research to uncover actual like root problems in anything that like any grant or project that we encounter. Finally, for improving the quality of life and the economy of any place in Ohio or further that we are tackling. For this grant, so it was Drive Ohio and ODOT, 1 year, 100K grant for mobility hubs to improve access, safety, and economy in Ohio. It is an early stage. And finally, we developed some visual materials based on case studies and the playbook to help any community, government, company develop these kind of mobility hubs. There were 10 students and 3 faculty members in this grant, and I was the team lead. So starting with the research framework, just kind of framing what you will see later and how we did it, and maybe even with research, a lot of you here, as Michelle said, are doing your own studies. So maybe some of this can be helpful as well. How we do it is we start with secondary research, where we did a lot of STEEP factors. So those are social, technological, economic, environmental, and political factors of a place. Mobility hub benchmarking, and finally megatrends and stakeholder definition. Again, those were qualitative, quantitative methods. We uncovered a lot of demographic stuff, a lot of economic stuff that we use later on. And one of the most important ones, which I think reflects of a lot of what you all said today, especially I think Linda, is that traditional economic policies like tax breaks in Midwest didn't really work in revitalizing, especially rural and suburban areas that were depressed. But what did work is bringing amenities, especially small businesses. And I think Michael said bringing big businesses to bring small businesses. But also what works is bringing small businesses first, bringing those amenities, even just public spaces, enhancing public spaces is something that works in then bringing the jobs and then bringing the people with the jobs and revitalizing an area. So that was one of the big ones that we saw and kind of reframed the project. What ODOT wanted with this is just mobility hubs. How we were able to reframe it with this data is the mobility hubs should be more than what they were usually used for in the world even, which is for urban areas, and really see how they can help suburban and rural areas in Ohio as well. And with our trends, we scoured through a lot of data from federal agencies and state agencies to see just how much young people are getting their driver's licenses less. Old people who are, becoming more and more, just more and more of the demographic, especially in suburban rural areas, are driving less and less or are able to drive less and less because of different, just age, disabilities, and etc. With that, having multimodal options will be crucial. With all of that data in mind, we went to primary research. We had pilot subject matter expert interviews with where I kind of connected with Mitch. He was one of our interviewees. Then experienced expert community surveys. So we like to talk about users not just as users, but really experienced experts. So all of you here also are, some of you are subject matter experts, some of you experienced experts. And finally, multimodal data collection with GIS mapping, weighing and clustering. And I will talk more about that because this is really important in figuring out where and how to put mobility and amenities in your community and in your town. And all of that kind of framed what our case studies are going to be. One other data collection thing that I wanted to mention before going further is, I don't know if any of you have heard of or used Placer AI. I'm not going to talk about how the data is obtained. So it's all of our cell phones, but even for free, anyone can basically see how many people are patroning a specific business in their area. It might be a hotel, it might be the Mid-Ohio racetrack. And if you pay, it can be any particular street. And it could be really a good tool to show to your representatives or anyone else just how many people are going into your area and into specific businesses. And yeah, I'm not plugging. We didn't in the end use any paid version, but even a free version is just a really good tool for any government, like local government, to use. Going into primary research, so these are all the partners that we connected with. You can see all about Ohio there, but really a lot of government, a lot of NGOs, a lot of mobility service providers, larger employers, 20 interviews, um, just uncovering local need and demand, systemic development, and then going into online surveys to see a more detailed outline and ranking and qualitative descriptions of that need and demand for the specific spaces and areas in Ohio that we defined based on the secondary research. And the data that we use, so multimodal data collection, is basically finding and mapping the amenities and mobility modes, and then using the survey and interview data to weigh them. So they were first mapped and then they were weighed based on proximity, connection, and availability. So based on the insights from survey and interview, the data that was, or the amenities and mobility modes that were highest need, they needed to be, we said, the closest to the mobility hub, or where you will finally choose the location of your mobility hub. Where there is express need, then they should be connected by transit or uncongested roadway. And finally, with the highest unrealized demand, that should be something that a mobility hub or a rail station could be a mobility hub, for example, with some other amenities, something that it should feel a need with. And we use that to divide clusters and find stronger clusters, and finally triangulate a site for a mobility hub or any kind of community hub. What we started to also develop, my colleague Henry Levesque, pictured here, but all of us too, is a biometric data collection tool, which uses heart rate data, GPS data, and images of face and environment to determine where and what were the stressors when people used any specific mobility mode. This is something that we just started and we will continue developing, and I hope that we'll be able to share more with you in any of the next times that we meet. But it is a very potent tool that we hope to, especially Henry, who's developing this for his PhD, to kind of share this with you, and that anyone will be able to use this to have actual data to show how bad, for example, walking around a train station could be, and how it could be improved. And then we used all of this data to firstly develop this hubs matrix. And it could be used for these kind of mobility or community hubs, or for anything else for that matter as well, where we determine it based on land use. So is it rural, suburban, or urban land use? Then determining, is it a local or central level based on the amount and purpose of trips? So is it more of a place where it's destination trips or where the trips originate? And finally, with cases inside of rural, suburban, and urban, based on resources and economic profiles. So we determine based on the data that kind of rural is mostly like a spectrum in between industrial and historical, or like tourist areas. Suburban between growing and affluent, or like more stagnant areas, and urban between small and large areas. And later I can share with you also the exact data points that you can use to determine where you fall in this matrix kind of, and then which of the case studies that I'm going to show you is the best for you to use, but it will be in the playbook. but it's based on density, on age, on ethnic groups, on average or like median income, and so on. So we developed, as you can see here, requirements, we planned, we designed, and finally we created digital twins, which I will show you in a little bit. And they're great tools to show your constituents or communities. So with concept designs, we developed requirements list, which is a very detailed list of placement, size, relation, design, interactions, and so on of and every single amenity and every single mobility mode for each hub type. And we have it in a textual document. We use that to start bubbles planning. So basically place amenities and mobility mode infrastructure to form a building layout for each of these case studies. And finally used visual contextualization of historical and cultural data. For example, this is for our Berlin, Ohio case study, where there's a big Amish community, but also combine it with future trends to design a flexible solution. And we also use new technology as we are future focused, like 3D VR bubbling, street mix planning. And this is a great tool too, if any of you haven't been using it yet, to redesign your streets into complete streets using, for example, NACTO guidelines, or just redesigning your street however you want. It's a free tool where you basically create these kind of 2D street sections just by drag and dropping any mobility mode on it and determining how wide your street is. And finally, using Viscom AI, also a free tool, where basically feeding any image and prompt into it, you can create an AI enhancement or a different visualization of a space. So this is how we started with, basically we fed sketches, like hand sketches, into this and created these kind of renders of our mobility hub first to kind of guide the design process forward. And the final part of our framework is digital twins, which are simulations of an existing space where our capability is to add our designs and new assets into it, and you will see how that looks in the end. And they're used for research and design validation, biometric validation. So I mentioned biometric earlier. We'll be able to then put people in VR in the same space, but with our enhancements, and to see, did our design actually solve the issues of stress and stressors that were there in the first place? Showcasing to stakeholders, it is a great tool in participatory workshops. And finally, we use it a lot in the past for government decision making with City of Cincinnati, for example. So getting into recommendations, this is something that will be in the playbook, but we determined that the hubs are not just mobility hubs. They are well-connected multimodal spaces at the same time as community-oriented or community-based places to connect, grow, and relax in public and limited amenities. As we said before, these kind of amenities bring in economic development. So they are important as community economic development tools. With present and future mobility modes for people and goods, improved access and quality of life, creating flexible spaces that grow in the future, so they're flexible with people and technology. And ultimately, all of this is shown to reverse negative economic and demographic trends in any of the unique landscapes of Ohio. So we also recommend that the mobility hubs are developed with 4 building blocks. The first one is the data collection and the mobility modes and amenity weighing that I talked about earlier, which is basically choosing a location and need the best. Then connecting it to its site, connecting the site to its surroundings, it has to be holistic. You have to change the streets and connect it to existing amenities and existing infrastructure, not just build something in a vacuum. And then you mix and match the amenities and mobility modes to create something that works well with the current, bus routes or train routes. And finally, creating pleasant experience. It should fit in the local fabric. It should address climate, health, quality of life issues using architecture and design. So this is what I've been talking about. Firstly, this is the first building block. Secondly, for example, for Uptown in Cincinnati, this is how it looks currently. kind of this is where we are in digital futures are building um, empty land plots, kind of seeing how you can reuse empty land plots, especially surface level parking, how you can reuse what's already out there, connected to that, but also improve on that. And then, for example, micromobility, for example, drones or rail, kind of how we can work together as amenities and mobility modes. And then, adding experience, how you can design something that is calm, that is a community space for events, maybe spaces for unhoused or homely feeling, etc. So all of this is in much greater detail in our playbook that we will share with you. And all of that starts with any community or any one of you kind of building a profile based on demographics, industry, policy, etc., which you will be able with the data points that we'll share, and kind of finding yourself on this matrix, and then going into seeing how those requirements, how those designs can be made visual, or just using this checklist. This is also going to be a part of it, which is any mobility mode, including light rail or heavy rail, passenger rail. We have a checklist of should you have it based on data, should you consider it, or is it not needed for the place where you are? So these are the hubs. Now, one by one, just shortly, kind of this is what we in the end designed as concepts. So this one is the 1A, as you can see in this. So this is 1ABC, 2ABC, 3ABC. This is a rural local historical for Millersburg, which is Holmes County. For example, this is a video. Just the sound is a little bit okay. These are the videos that we produced, and we will be able to share this with you as well, where there's also more detail on how these hubs could be designed in terms of where certain mobility modes and amenities could be placed and how they could look, but not to go into too much detail. That one was for Berlin. This one is for Mount Gilead, which I think should be close to some of you here in this call. This is more of an industrial town, so also the amenities could be more industrial leaning. For suburban areas, Anderson Township, a local affluent hub with, for example, a focus on community gardens and filling in for like food deserts with a grocery store. Suburban Central, so Anderson Township downtown area, they're more interested, for example, in recreation and connecting to the trails that are already there and existing, but also giving multimodal options and information and being clear about that information. Then, for example, a growing suburban place like Forest Park, just north of Cincinnati, and how you can make taking a bus more barrier free and just nicer looking so that people feel not like they're just forgotten and an afterthought. Then going into urban areas, a Cincinnati uptown where University of Cincinnati is, hub where it's about giving place for families, for children, for students, and a place in nature in a very urban fabric. A downtown Cincinnati one, a really big hub that we, say we could do something like Boston did with the Big Dig. Why not cover a downtown highway that's already sunken? Why not utilize or reutilize a subway bus terminal that's already there and give it something more, give it, fruit trees in downtown of a city where people can basically pick up fruit from the trees and eat them. Places for families, places for events, getting a better hub for, Cincinnati Metro, but also connecting it to Red Bike or rideshare like Uber or Lyft, connecting public and private mobility modes, etc. And finally, for Youngstown, which is, a situation on its own. But as we know, a lot of these things can help develop cities like Youngstown. And all this will be in detail in the playbook, as I said, that we can share with you. It is a document written so that any community, even organization or government can use it. And finally, with next steps for us, we secured a next grant with ODOT for 25/6 for STEAM educational toolkits using these hubs to go in schools, to go in K to 12, and teach about future mobility technology and workforce development in a multimodal environment. So hopefully getting the next generation really hopeful and interested in these kind of things. And of course, advancing our technical and participatory capabilities with maybe helps from partnerships with people like you. For you, the playbook to start the conversation or start developments of such hubs or integrated into the developments and research that you're doing. And finally, together, just advancing partnerships. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the ability to go in all communities, but we know that partnerships with governments like you or organizations like All Aboard Ohio are really fruitful because we have our own capabilities. You have your own capabilities. So developing specific parts in the future, like maybe a dedicated rail playbook, or projects advancing hubs or developing hubs in your communities is something that we are really interested in. Thank you so much. I hope this was, something useful for you and what you're working on.
Thank you so much, Dom. This is, yeah, incredible. And it's something, yeah, so All Aboard Ohio has been really happy to provide some input. We also just appreciate, yeah, the fact that you did reach out to so many different organizations as you did this research. And I think it really shows in some of the very thoughtful designs that are included in these plans, where if we just have a couple of planners that are making the design rather than getting input from the entire community, we'll probably miss out on some really great ideas. So that's truly awesome. We will be sure to share the materials out to everybody on this call, and then we'll also have this recording posted onto YouTube. And Dom, if you're okay with it, I can also share your contact if people have follow-up questions, just because we're out of time for this meeting.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you again to our panel as well, and thank you to everybody for sharing your Saturday morning with us. I hope you all have a great rest of April, and keep your eyes peeled for our next advocacy push as we talk in the Senate here coming up. So, thank you.